We're back on the SportsMax Zone. Now, following the Jamaica Reggae Boyz' recent trip to Saudi Arabia for 2 international friendlies, both head coach and captain of the team have publicly blasted team officials on their management of the trip. The Caribbean's #1 ranked team suffered a humiliating 3-0 defeat in their first game on Saturday, the 14th of November, before rallying for a 2-1 victory in the second game 3 days later. Captain Damian Lowe spoke out on the issues faced by the team and how it can affect things going forward. This is what he said. To be honest, it's very frustrating, but I've told administration it's not going to go on any longer. We need to get issues out of the way before camps, before tours, so we can come in and focus only on football. If the players aren't comfortable, we won't be able to perform at our highest, regardless. Now, the head coach of the team, Theodore Whitmore, had difficulty selecting his squad as a number of the players arrived in Riyadh beyond their scheduled date, therefore extending their quarantine period, making them unavailable for the opening game. On his arrival back home, Whitmore, a midfield standout you'll remember from the historic 1998 World Cup Reggae Boyz team, said this: "Administratively, we have to pull up our socks. We can't continue in this manner. Sometimes it is like you're lighting a US $100 bill looking for a dollar, and it really doesn't make any sense." So Whitmore speaks, Damian Lowe speaks. Now we're joined by the General Secretary of the JFF, Dalton Wint, to address some of these issues that key members of the playing unit and the coach are voicing out. Dalton, welcome to the SportsMax Zone. It seems that whenever we talk to you, it's for you to fend off some pressure. Welcome to the zone.
Very unfortunate. Good afternoon to you and to your counterpart.
Yeah. Well, you would have heard what the captain Damian Lowe said, and the coach Theodore Whitmore as well. Those comments were in the media even before now. Let me ask first, did they address or did they confront the administration of the JFF with these issues as opposed to, going to the media first?
That's the unfortunate thing, because, we are a part of the system, The team cannot do without the administrator. The administrative arm cannot do without the team. So we are one unit. And so we should, when we have our differences, we should sit around the table and have this discussion.
So you're suggesting that they didn't approach you with these issues?
Absolutely not. But, with that said, though, it is an opportunity to bring them into a meeting and to have this discussion, because, when you are being accused of doing something, you must get an opportunity to defend what you have done.
But from
the reason for doing it.
Yeah, but Mr. Wint, from the outside looking in, the comments by both the captain and the coach seem reasonable to us looking from the outside. In other words, you're going on an important friendly international thousands of miles away from home, and issues of payment of players and so on are not, as far as we are seeing, not dealt with beforehand. So isn't that a reasonable position for the players to think that they weren't treated fairly or properly?
The fact is that, Vance, we had discussion. We were discussing the matter. It did not conclude in time for us to go on this tour. And so the discussion continued even during it, because we thought we were at a stage to have the proposal signed, but unfortunately they came back and, with some concern, and I think some part of it is reasonable because they're going into an environment. It was not a usual situation where the match fee that we generally agreed to was agreed to, because the fact is that we were going into Saudi Arabia during this COVID pandemic, and so it put another spin to the discussion.
Well, the coach himself didn't seem too happy with some of the arrangements. We mentioned earlier on that some of his players didn't arrive at the time they should have arrived, and the insinuation is that it was an administrative foul-up. How do you respond to that?
And if I probably was in the coaches, I wouldn't go about it that way. But the fact is that I would be happy because I need all of my players to be there and to be able to train. And that's a perfect scenario. But during this time of COVID, it's not a perfect situation because you have things that you have never encountered before you are encountering now. The fact is that we had players reaching days late because of the fact that flight has to be changed. They had to redo their COVID tests, all different issues because borders were closing left, right, and center. We had to be canceling tickets and rebooking tickets on different airlines. So those were the difficulties that we faced.
Dalton, would you say that some of these off-the-field issues may have impacted the first performance when the Reggae Boyz lost?
I absolutely agree with that.
All right, so moving forward, will there be any measures put in place to ensure that our Jamaica Reggae Boyz are not affected?
This is something that we have always tried to do to correct the mistakes that we have been making. And the fact is that most of what happened on this trip to Saudi was not a mistake. It was out of our hands because players that should have left on the 8th were told by their club that they can't leave until the 9th. And so they arrived in Saudi Arabia late. What might have happened also is that, as I said before, their COVID tests got expired, and so they'll have to wait another day, or their flights, their borders that they were scheduled to travel to are closed, and so they have to go, we have to reroute them. So, we had some difficulties with that, some things that we could not avoid.
Overall, what did you think about the quality of the Reggae Boyz performance, and what are you putting in place now to ensure that, when they get set for the World Cup qualifiers and all these different things, they're ready to compete and be a competitive unit?
One of the things that we want to do is to ensure that players do sign the contract that is provided, and we will only be interested in persons who sign these contracts. So we have a discussion, make sure, we present a very reasonable contract to the players and give them a deadline to sign it. And so going forward, we only be able to select from the players who have signed those contracts.
Dalton, you mentioned just now about the COVID-19 complications with travel and so on. But how would the JFF explain a COVID-19 test being done so close to the team's departure that a player would not have gotten a result until the player was en route to Saudi Arabia? In this case, a player en route to Saudi Arabia, getting a positive result, having to deplane in London and find his way back home. How would you explain that? Because they were in camp, they were in Jamaica getting ready to leave. So how would they have had such a late COVID-19 test to cause a situation to exist where a player leaves without getting a result?
That was intentionally done, Lance. The fact is that you don't need a COVID negative to board a plane in Jamaica, but you need that to board a plane to Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
You have only 72 hours. We got caught with that also, Lance, where ours was expired 2 hours or a little bit over an hour before we boarded the plane in Chicago. And so we had to stay and do our thing.
Yeah, when you say ours, you mean yourself and other JFF executives who were en route to Saudi Arabia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. The fact is that we chose to do the test on Friday because we did not want to exceed the 72 hours. Because that player or some of the players went through England. And so they would have 2 days of traveling before they get onto the plane to Saudi Arabia.
So how many tests?
They have to do the test late.
Yeah, how many tests would have been done? Wasn't there a situation where more than one test could have been done ahead of the team's departure?
But even if you did the test, now, the only test they recognize is the one that is within that 72 hours. It's a minute or two over the hour, the 72 hours, you will not be allowed to board that plane. So we intentionally did that test on Friday. It wasn't a mistake.
Is it that the JFF didn't have enough money? Because you could have done a test before, just to give you an initial status of the player's situation?
Yes, that could have been done. But remember, that player can catch that COVID during traveling from Jamaica to UK. It doesn't necessarily mean that that player had the COVID during the campaign.
All right, the position that you're presenting to us now on the show, would the team and the complainants, which we've heard from, captain and coach and so on, captain and coach of the team, wouldn't they have been aware of some of the things that you are telling us? In other words, to sort of satisfy them that you did the best you could?
That is why they should have had this discussion around the boardroom. Because the fact is that most people didn't know the sort of situation, but those persons who have traveled before, there is no normal traveling again. That the way you used to travel is really out of your hand. We traveled to Miami because we had some prior business to do. We did a test in Miami. Because of what happened with the weather there in Miami, we did not get the result. That's the second test. Our 72-hour test expired, and so we had to wait 2 days in Chicago before we could travel again, because the airline only travels on a Monday and a Wednesday and a Friday. So, those are the things that we do face.
All right. Dalton, thanks for talking to us here on the SportsMax Zone. I know that there's a bit of a break now, World Cup qualifying for the Reggae Boyz coming up next year, and the football fans in Jamaica are hoping that all things will be put in place and there are no hiccups for the World Cup campaign. Thanks for talking to us.
You're most welcome.
Yeah. Brent, I know Trinidad and Tobago is the haven for bacchanal in football, but the Jamaicans, certainly the team, having come back from Saudi Arabia, they don't seem too happy with the performance of the JFF.
Well, being a player and now an administrator, a former player and an administrator, I know there's always three sides to a story. But I would say this much, guys, at the end of the day, international football is big business. It's big money business. There's a lot of money. I'm very sure Jamaica would have been, or the JFF would have paid a handsome sum to come across to play Saudi Arabia. And it's how, of course, with travel and all these different things, and I would also say, of course, the pandemic does create some issues. So when you match those two together, you have your challenges, because at the end of the day, the money that they would have received, I'm very sure they would have tried in their utmost best to make sure that they don't go in the red from what they receive. But as I said, there's three sides to the story. I think you hit the nail in the headlines. You have to clear these issues up. This is the new norm. This is it. This is how the things are going to be.
Yes.
So you have to clear these things up. Jamaica is the only country, I think Caribbean island, that played international football during the international break. So they need to clear some of these things up, because this is the new norm.
Yeah, we go to break. Back to wrap the zone after this.